Welcome to this week's episode of Art Wisdom with Chris and Kat. And this week we have a special guest, the sales strategist, our friend, Martin Eade. Great to have you, Martin. And you're going to talk to us today about all things sales. And it really doesn't matter on what business you have. Sales is sales.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, Kat, I started out selling when I was a 13-year-old, back in Hamilton, New Zealand, when I was collecting money for the Waikato Times. And I found out that after about 6 months, I was asked by people, well, how come you can collect more money than someone twice your age and get the bigger debts? And so I didn't know. I was 13 years old, but looking back, I use the same techniques now, closing multi-million-dollar deals that I did as a 13-year-old. But,
Wow.
The one thing I do know for sure is that sales is tough, right? Everyone goes through sales slumps, but it's something that's a superpower. I just love selling. I love the framework of selling because it's not pushy and smarmy and manipulative. And it's all about living your authentic self. And I think that's what I like about sales so much, because when someone goes from a fear of selling into accepting themselves as being the prize and that they can sell, then it's transformational, not only in their business, but in their life. Because the tips, the things that you get out of being able to sell, pitch, persuade, influence, and sell are things that you can put into everyday life, because it's all about communication, the power of language, right?
Right.
So, my sales story started when I was 13 and now it's 45 years later, yes. So, love selling, Kat.
Love it.
Some people get confused about what's sales and what's marketing. So what's leads and what's sales. So maybe we'll start with that to just even clarify if people have an issue with marketing or sales.
Great question, because it's the first thing that I get asked a lot of, right? Because when people come to me with their issues, I'll say, right, so, what are the biggest challenges that are holding you back? And a lot of it's lead generation, right? And lead generation is a function of marketing. I say to people, hey, look, I'm not a marketing guy, I'm a sales guy. And really sales kicks in from the first time you start talking with the customer. And that's a very simplistic way of having it. So when you've got the customer at your door, when you're about to talk to them for the first time, whether it's via an email or whether it's by actually picking up the phone or whether it's on a Zoom, that's step number one of the sales process. And it's we're going to cover a lot of ground today, but step one of the process is wherever it starts. For some people, it's going to be a phone call. For some people, it's going to be an email. For some, whatever that is for you, that's the start of the sales process.
Great. And we've got loads of podcasts already on leads, so you can refer to them if you want to catch up on the leads. But once you've got the leads, we're into the sales. So what do we do then, Martin? What do we do? Because a lot of people, even the confidence, we see a lot of the confidence with people with sales, that it's still a dirty word for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's how do for that?
I would say that a lot of artists have an issue with even the concept of selling. And just even like, how do you recommend to people to overcome their fear of even like putting themselves out there? I think it's really a mental game at the beginning.
See, I find this very curious.
Specifically
in your field as artists, right?
Right.
Because you're saying that that artists have an issue with putting themselves out there. Yet artists do that. Like if you're a painter, you're putting yourself out there on a canvas. If you're a photographer, you're putting it out there. If you're an author, you're putting it out there in a book, right? Like that is the ultimate putting yourself out there, right? Because you're putting your product out there for judgment.
Yeah.
And that's the perceived thing, is you're putting yourself out there for judgment, right?
Judgment.
Yeah.
I think it's more so, it's like putting themselves out there and asking for money and valuing what they're doing, probably more so than like even, although some people do have an issue with like even just showing anything, they keep it secret. But for those people that do put it out there, I think that terrifying, like asking someone for money for something is like a bridge. It's like what mindset do people need to do to overcome that?
Yeah, and it's the first thing, like in the structure that I have, my process is called I cardio, and I right at the start stands for I believe, because that's the very first thing that anyone has to do from a sales perspective. Is you have to believe in yourself. And I say to clients every single day, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in your worth, how the hell do you expect someone else to? And that belief mindset, really it comes down from not being fearful of the outcome. And because what a lot of people will do is they'll project themselves into the future before they start talking with someone. They'll project themselves into the future and go, oh, what if that person doesn't like it? What if that person rejects me? What if that person this? What if that person that? So they're projecting a false expectation of the future instead of, I'm awesome. I'm the prize. I'm the one that's created this, and I'm worthy. And it might sound, it's very easy for me to say that, but I understand that this is difficult for a lot of people to grasp. But if you go into any sales conversation with that prize frame mindset of that, I'm the prize, I'm the author of this work, I'm the painter of this product, you're not. And I don't care if you buy it or not, but I know that my boundary is the worth of this. I've put blood, sweat, tears, effort into this, and that's worth something.
Yeah.
Because for an artist, you guys are putting your authenticity, your heart on a plate every time you go out, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, especially when you've made those special pieces, and sometimes you look at the work and you go, I don't know how I pulled that one off, but I did.
Right.
And I do think what you talked about earlier, that twofold thing, you have got the art that you're putting yourself out there to be critiqued, but it's so, well, it's personal to you. It's, it's like a singer going out and singing and people going, oh my God, that's rubbish. So they've got to get over that factor first off, and then get over the factor of asking for money for it.
But I think
sorry, carry on, Kat.
I was going to say, it's like that concept of losing the fear of the outcome works in both parts, right? I'm not scared of what you think, because ultimately everyone's on a journey anyway. And especially when you start, but let's be fair, if you were Da Vinci, how many people would wish they had an early Da Vinci sketch, when he couldn't draw at the beginning, right? How amazing would that be?
Yeah, but I bet you that Da Vinci thought he was shit. I bet you everyone did. All of those guys, Van Gogh, you name a famous artist, they would have all thought at some stage, and Galileo, like in your neck of the woods, like he was chastised, and
absolutely,
so, everybody goes through it. But from a process, from a sales process, the start of the sales process is about selecting. And it's about selecting the customer that's right for you. Wow. And from an art perspective, it's your product. That's the selection process, because if you put your space art out there, Kat, or if Chris, you put your paintings out there, then not everyone's going to like it. 100%. But that's okay.
Yeah.
But that's completely okay. Because if you look at, it's the fear of rejection that holds many people back. But if you consider rejection, that there's very few people in the world can actually reject you. If you think about it, a parent can reject a child. A spouse can reject a spouse twice. Thank you very much. And from time to time, perhaps a parent might be able to reject a student. But apart from that, there's very few people that can reject you. So when someone is saying to you, Kat, I don't like that photograph of the supernova, they're not saying, Kat, you're a horrible person, I don't want to be around you, and you've got smelly breath. They're not saying that, right? They're just saying, I don't like your photo.
But you're right. You know what? I remember this one time I was at a stand-up comedy show, and they obviously have a series of different acts, and I was absolutely dying at this one comedian, but the people next to us were like stone cold, like dead. And then the next comedian came on and I was like, this is the most boring comedian. And they were laughing their asses off. And I had that moment where I was like, there's someone for everyone, but not everyone for everyone. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of owning that and go, hey, look, that's okay. If that particular piece of art is no good for you, great. There's someone else that it will be good for.
But and also I think that this idea of rejection from price, being scared of like putting a price out there and someone saying, oh no, that's too much, doesn't mean that you're charging too much. It just means that it's too much for that person, and that's okay. Because it does, you know, it doesn't have, like, the budget doesn't have to fit that specific person. There's lots of people in the world.
So any artist out there that thinks that their art is going to sell because of the price, give yourself an uppercut, because it's never, ever about the price. Never, ever about the price.
Oh my gosh.
And in fact, what I would say to people is that, let's take you, Chris, because I know you sell really high quality pieces of art. And so I'm just going to make some numbers up, but let's just say you've spent a week, or how long does it take you to create a masterpiece of yours, Chris?
Well, that's saying how long's a piece of string, Martin, and that's an issue with the art thing. It can, if I'm really inspired to do something, it can take a day. Otherwise, I can labor over it for 3 months. So it's really,
so on average, let's say 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks.
Right.
So 3 weeks, right? And so I imagine that, you know, 3 weeks worth of effort, there's going to be a few $100s or a few thousand or whatever it might be. But whatever the number is, I would say to everybody in the art world out there, whatever your price is right now, I would say to everybody, triple it today. Just triple your price. Now, what I would also ask you, now that I've said triple your price, everyone's now gone,
I did.
This advice is shit. We're never going to fucking sell anything. Oh, my lad, I swear. We're never going to sell anything, right? But the reality is completely different, because people only value that which does have a price. And the biggest issue that I see with a lot of companies I work for is that they'll go out with this product or service and they'll put a price on it, and people will go, gee, it can't be that good then, you know, because the price is so low.
People honestly do use that price to understand its value. And let's be honest, it's not like there's two things, right? There's the art and the craft, like how skilled you are at drawing, but there are literal paintings of blocks of color, which are beautiful blocks of color, but they sell for hundreds of millions of dollars. So if anyone is producing anything that's more advanced than a block of color, even if it is a block of color, the baseline at least is 100 million. So if you're underneath that, yeah, fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because when someone is buying your space art, Kat, they're not buying that piece of space art only. 100%. They're buying the decades of experience that you've had. They've you know, the experience you've had dealing with SpaceXs and people like that, and the experience you've had with these big ass telescopes, by the way. and you know, knowing how to photograph the cosmos. I mean, that's not something that anyone can do, right?
Yeah, and also with art, it's the one additional thing is people are buying meaning, right? When you look at a piece of artwork on the wall, it's there as a reminder of an important message that you're trying to get across. It's every time you look at it, it inspires you to go a bit harder, or inspires you to smile, or it inspires you to think, good God, we're in a bloody massive universe. Isn't that mad? Whatever your message is, you can't really put a price on it.
And that is the key to selling. The key to selling, everybody, is that if you are improving the life of the buyer and making the world a better place, then close the deal. And I can't think of a community that does that as a whole better than the art community. I mean, when you look at, I've seen some of your artwork, Chris, and I've obviously seen some of yours, Kat. And what you just said then, Kat, like you're actually, when someone has a piece of your art on the wall, it improves their lives, because people, it'll take them to a memory, it'll take them to a feeling, it'll take them to a place.
Yeah.
It will remind them of a situation. And this is something that's going to be around with them for years, decades, maybe for the rest of their life. And
Right.
you're charging $200 for it. What am I
Right.
missing?
You know what? Actually, you just made me think of something, is that when people are so focused on being the lowest price, what they're doing is making a wall decoration. But if someone wants a wall decoration, they can go to Target for that.
Totally.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I
We're
think
not in the business.
touched on something that me and Kat have talked about over the years as well, is like, what problem do we solve? You know, we've sort of struggled with that. And I know because lots of business things are, you find the issue that someone's got, fill that gap, and you find your market. But with art, I've always struggled with feeling like there was a problem to solve. But it's not so much of a problem to solve, is it? It's just enhancing somebody's life. It's like we all like I like a beautiful home. I love walking in my home. I love having some of the paintings or the furniture or whatever I've got. It does make me smile that I can create an environment that makes me feel happy to be in. So I think that's not so much the problem we solve. It's maybe it is, like you said, just enhancing the world.
You're not solving problems, you're bringing joy. There's no greater cause to the world than bringing joy, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's something that you know, you as a community, as I said before, you put your heart on a plate and you put it out there. And yes, Kat, what you just said, you're not creating a mural for the wall. Well, maybe some people are, but it's an inspired piece of art that came from somewhere deep within inside somebody.
Right.
And that took creative genius to be able to create, right? So charge for it.
Yeah.
Because very few people can do that. I said to you earlier on before off camera, I can't even draw a stick drawing. So I live in awe for people like you guys who actually have a creative flair in your body. I mean, I can sell stuff. That's my superpower. But ask me to draw something.
But it's funny you were saying that, Chris, because I think one of the things is that imagine a world without art. You know, it would be grey and bland and pure function. There wouldn't be movies, there wouldn't be literature, there wouldn't be fashion. Everything would be bland as hell. I mean, you don't need art to survive, but would you want to survive without it?
No, you wouldn't. And I think, you know, so yeah, step one is, you know, having that selection process, right? And then step two, when you're in the process of selling the art, and it just came to me just now, because selling, everyone who's listening to this sells. Every single person on the planet sells when you think about it. If you're a mother, you sell the benefits of going to bed early or the benefits of healthy eating to your child, right? A lawyer sells the benefits to a jury of conviction. If you're a doctor, you sell the benefits of taking the medicine, right? So everyone sells something. And one of my favorite stories was on a facilitation, because I asked this, who said, I said, what was your greatest sale in the last 48 hours? Because I ask everybody, right? Because everyone doesn't think they're in sales. He said, I sold my wife the benefits of me buying a PlayStation 5. But that's a sale, right? But my point is that sales is think of it this way. If I say to you, The Shawshank Redemption, if I say to you, Phantom of the Opera,
right,
things like that, right? They're artistic endeavors, and artists of all descriptions tell stories. You tell a story in your art. Kat, you tell a story in your art. Sales is all about telling a story. You're already telling one. So from a sales perspective, rather than try and flog something for $200, tell the story behind that piece of art. Tell that's like that. What was it that I was raving? That the photo I saw that you put up the other day, Kat, the one that I just loved. What was that?
Oh, yeah. So that one's called AW27, and it is a supernova remnant. It was a star. It's about 6 times the size of the sun that just exploded one day, and that was what was left.
So see, there was the start of a story, right? So if someone came to Kat wanting that particular piece of artwork, instead of trying to, I would be starting to tell a story. Well, let me tell you where that story originated. And that story originated 30 million years ago, because that's how long it takes that light to get to us, right? So that image was captured. It's like before the dinosaurs, that photo, and then you could go into a story about it, right? And a story which demonstrates your expertise, how hard it was. I can't imagine how many hours you were looking through that bloody telescope and
15.
getting it just right, searching the sky, right?
Yeah.
But it's not easy to, so you're building up a story about what it is, how you got it, and all of a sudden someone's going, so what do you mean? You didn't just point a camera at the sky and want to charge me $1,500 for it?
You just hit on something that's just sparked a thing. I think that a lot of artists, and Chris, interrupt me if you think this is true or not, that we take for granted our skills and we think it's so easy for everyone that, and we think what we do is like, oh, just anyone could do it.
Yeah,
well, that's not true.
And definitely. And when Martin was saying something before, can't remember what it was, but that thought came to me, because I don't know about you, Kat, but I am inundated with lots of art things, lots of my feed, and you can get overwhelmed and sort of go, there's loads of artists out there. There's loads, but it's only that environment that I've put myself in. Like Martin, you probably don't get any artists. Because I hear some people say, yeah, oh, the market's so crowded, but it doesn't matter in what occupation you're in. I think you'd feel that anyway, because that's the interest that you've got, and that's what you're focusing on seeing. So it's not that we're in an oversaturated market. It's just that that's in your environment.
Yeah, you're in a crowded marketplace. Oh, boo hoo hoo hoo. I mean, join the real world. That's everybody, right? But you know, it's all about how you stand out in a busy world.
Yeah.
And everyone can do that.
The story,
because the one thing you do is you have a, because whenever you paint something, Chris, you start with the basis of an idea which probably originated somewhere. It might originate in your childhood. It might have originated on your recent trip around Australia, but there'll be an origination to that painting.
Right.
Tell the story.
Yeah.
Because the only painting in the world that comes with you is that one. Yeah. So so when you consider that, it's not a crowded marketplace at all. It's the Chris Mercer Jones marketplace.
And also for artists as well, like we have a unique style to us. It's like everyone's signature is different. And if I write Kat Machin, I'll write it different to Kat. And it's the same as that with painting. If somebody paints even what I paint, they will paint it differently because it's just a different hand. So for us, we are quite unique in that way.
But everyone is. Like everyone has our own personality, our own authenticity. And I think the other point is that when you're in a sales process, show up as your own authentic self. Don't try and be don't try and be someone you're not. Because people think that in sales, you've got to be high energy, you've got to be this, you've got to be that, right?
Yeah. We do it all the time in art. They do these bios where they write in third person. But
if that's how you naturally show up, then be that person. I'm a natural smart ass, but that's how I sell, right? But I can't sell like Chris. Chris can't sell like Kat. Kat can't sell like me. And so authenticity and is about bringing yourself, because when you consider that we as humans, you know, we're a 1 in 700 trillion chance of ever being born in the first place. So we're a unique feat of the universe, nature, God, whatever you believe. So my belief is that you have an obligation to the universe, to the Lord, and that obligation is to be the best possible version of you, is to show your authenticity to the world, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't have something unique to give, if you didn't have some unique gift to shower upon the world. So get out there and shower it upon the world. And if the one thing that's holding you back is a fear of rejection and selling, then wake the hell up.
So what about people that they're not necessarily scared of, or maybe they are scared of the rejection, but they have had bad sales experience and they feel like if they start selling, it's all of a sudden they're going to lose their ethics or their morals. Because I know there's a lot of people that feel like that.
Oh,
Right, I know,
really,
I know it's
that
rubbish.
boils my
But
blood when I
know,
understand.
people do say that, but
the skin on
I
me.
agree. I'm all with you. But that, I feel like that's like the elephant in the room when we're talking to people that are unfamiliar with sales. They've been to a car yard and been precious sold something they didn't want, and now it's tarnished the concept of sales everywhere, and it's not necessarily true. So let's talk about that.
Well, because that old style of selling, the old always be closing, ABC, closing, thankfully those old sales dinosaurs are pretty much gone, because the origin of that, and I won't bore you with the complete, but the origin of that was, if you consider that in 2010, the world changed. Before 2010, salespeople were the curators and purveyors of information. And we would only give out information if it suited us. And then in 2010, of course, the internet became relevant on a global scale. All of a sudden, billions of people have information now. And now the whole thing is flipped. Now buyers have more control in the buying process than at any time ever before. And so they do all their, so if they're researching painting, for example, they're going to be out there, going to be researching paintings, they're going to be doing all this stuff, right? And they're probably going to choose the top 3, because that's usually how it works. And then they're going to get on the phone and they're going to call each artist and they're going to say, I've had a look at your painting, what's it cost, right? And then they're going to have the price. So then they're going to do the comparison. Sorry for putting my hands in your face. then they're going to do the comparison. They only know how, which is on price, right?
Right.
Because that's the only way you've allowed them to compare that. Whereas if someone rings you up and says, hey, look, Chris, I'm really interested in the painting. Can you tell me the price? Hey, look, that's a really great question. I'll get there. But before we do, my paintings, they don't suit everybody. And I want to make sure it's going to have a major impact on your life, or an impact on your life. So before we get there, let me ask you a few questions about what your intention is with this piece of art, where you're going to hang it, who you're going to be showing it to, because that way I can figure out if this piece of art is a good piece of art for you or not. And that's the pain point right there. It's not a pain point, but it is, right?
Yeah.
And then when the client has given you that information, then what I like to use is the empathy section. And every artist is empathetic, right? So heart-based. And then what you're doing is you're explaining back to the customer, great, Kat. So what you've told me is you want to have this as a centerpiece in the lounge room. And this is a lounge room where your family come every day and eat dinner. And you think it'd be a nice backdrop because it makes everyone feel like calm and nice. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes, that's right. Okay, now the buyer's going to relax, right? And now you can take that conversation anywhere you want to go. But now you take that conversation into, so let me tell you a bit of a story about this painting, how it came about, right? Now you're talking about the painting. Now you're building up your expertise as an artist. Now you're showing, not telling the artist how good you are by the story you're telling and by the experience and wealth of how the blah, 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 blah. And then when you get to as you're getting to the end, and then you can start going into, this is a limited edition piece. And, we understand it's not for everybody, but Mr. Customer, what's the logical next step for you from here? Now, if you followed that process, by the time you get to the end and you're asking the customer, what's the logical next step? Now, note, I didn't say, where's your checkbook? Not that they have checkbooks anymore, but give me your credit card details.
Bring out your fax and your pager.
Right? Like, what's the logical next step for you? And the logical next step might be, you know what, sign me up.
Right.
Or the logical next step might be, look, I need to chat with the with my partner about it. Or the logical next step might be, hey, look, it all sounds good. What's the investment? And that's the other thing. Don't talk price, talk investment. Because that's what people do when they buy art. They invest in it. They don't buy it.
You're right. It's an heirloom and it's going to be with them for a long time and it's going to be passed through the generations. I feel like every artist should treat their art like that. It's not like stuff that's going to be disposable. It's stuff that's going to be with that person forever. So that is an investment to their future and their future kids and their grandkids and so on and so forth.
Well, it is. Yeah, my father passed on about 8 months ago, and I've just been coming back from New Zealand with family heirlooms, right? And a lot of it is art, photos, things like that, that I can now look at. And my children, their grandkids were looking through some of the stuff the other day, seeing photographs of Nana on her wedding day, going, "Is that Nana? Is that Granddad? Yeah. Wow, they were good. Look, can I have that?" And so now, like that, but it's art, right? So what you just said is passing down generations.
Yeah.
And if you were to equate that, and this is not a great example, but if you were to equate because I'm a sales guy,
right?
And so it's all about ROIs, right? Return on investment. And if you consider the return on investment for a automobile, for example, so you have the duration of the lease, and that'll be costing X amount of hundreds of dollars a week. A piece of art, like the ROI, would be a 15th of a cent every time you look at it by the end of its. And if you look at Da Vinci and all those ones, they're worth, they're priceless, right?
Incredible amounts. And you have to be careful as an artist, because they do give you the side look, as they expect you to figure out how long it is until you die. But but it's a funny thing, because we are making things that will outlast ours, that will outlast the people that buy them. And so, so it is, and art does appreciate. In fact, actually, during most of the recession, one of the markets that isn't tumbling down is the art market, because people are looking for places to invest in. Yeah, for sure.
And I think, just back to where it started, is that everyone has an experience with a shitty being sold to, where they've gone away with buyer's remorse, where they've been pushed in or bullied or cajoled or something by somebody, and it doesn't feel good.
No.
But I'm going to look straight down the camera and say to everybody, it's okay, because those days are over. And so I would ask everybody, those bad experiences in the past, just treat it like a bad boyfriend in the past, it's or girlfriend, it's that's an experience that's over now. You can move on. It's that sales process. It's move on. It's not like that anymore, because people feel, and when I bristled before, when you say, people think sales is schmarmy and they're schmucks, that's absolutely what people think. I understand that, but it's just so not true in today's environment.
Yeah. And I think
they're still out there, but not many.
It's this necessity to close. You see, modern day selling is being okay to say, well, this isn't right for you. Have a great day. And that's fine. And allowing you, and that's really the defining difference, isn't it? Is that modern day sales is being able to walk away. Old school selling was not about that. It was about, you must close at all costs. And that's what it's about, because we only want people that are going to appreciate the artwork, that it really suits them. I don't, if someone comes to me and says, I really want a commission, Kat, can you do this portrait? And I go, unless it's a portrait shot of a galaxy, no. And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Because I only sell the things that I know I can do, that I'm happy with doing, that I know they're going to be happy with. I wouldn't want to pressure them into receiving a galaxy when they wanted a picture of their long lost gran or whatever it might be, So and I think that's the earlier message of, there's something for everyone, and you're not going to fit everybody's need, and that's okay. And in those cases, you can just walk away, or they can walk away, and that's fine. The other thing I found myself is that sometimes there's almost like a buyer's cycle. I have there are people that come to me, and at the beginning they might only be able to afford a $7 digital artwork, right? But then a year, 2 years down the line, they'll be buying prints, and then another year down, they're buying an original. And sometimes it's good to have those conversations, end them with love, and then offer them. Often I offer them, if it's really that they're just financially not able at the time, I'll offer them some of the lower priced items if they are available and it's suiting them. And they come back around, often, because it's something that really have to ruminate on for a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of, because in the art world, it's okay to say to somebody in a very nice way, because if someone says, let's say that one of your pieces of art is $3,000 and the buyer says, wow, I didn't realize the investment was going to be quite that heavy. And then what a lot of people attempt to do is then go, so, at what price would this be worth it for you? Ooh. And they'll say $1,500, right? Something like that. But there's nothing better than saying, if it's $3,000, saying, well, look, at this time in your life, obviously this investment is a bit beyond you. But what I would do, you've shown an interest in this, and obviously this would be very well in your home. So rather than buy something that maybe you're not going to be happy with, I would suggest you just put some money in the bank over the next couple of years and come back then.
Yeah.
Or give them an option. If you're after a low-priced piece of artwork, then there's this company that I can refer you to. It's called IKEA.
Or, you can say, look, because I sometimes have people like students, and then you can tell they're madly in love with it. They just don't have the means. So I just say, that's A-okay. My art isn't for everyone, and especially an original. These are luxury items. But I know you love the item. We can make there are prints available, or there is a digital available. Yeah.
Hey, I sell to Elon Musk. That's my playing field. And I can tell you're not Elon Musk, but it's okay. You don't quite need his wealth.
Right. But also, and this is for all artists, there's a limited availability of our time and energy. There's only so much physical work you can produce. And honestly, there are people that maybe have missed out on buying an original from me that are now so priced out. And I'll let them know, but not in a pressured way, because I think sometimes people don't realize, because I do often get that I'll save up for a piece. And when they said that the piece is worth $3,000, these pieces are now selling for $20,000 plus. And that's the bottom, So, upwards to $50,000, which is amazing. So what I tend to do is show people the trends and just let them know. I do that with good intentions, not to pressure anyone, but just because I think it's not common knowledge.
That's the reality of it. And
it is the reality
that's going to be
of
part of your process. But this is what I liked, what you talked about, Martin, because people, I don't think, have a process in place. And that's where we fall down, because we sort of get the phone call and do that and then go, but once you have a process, it's like every single time that this happens, I love that you just can follow a simple process step by step.
And a process makes you feel safe, and it makes the buyer feel safe, because it shows people you know what you're doing. And then at any step of the process, you know where you're at, because that happens. The phone rings. So it's like lead close, right? Lead comes in. Now I'm going to make a close. And so, but that's no logical series of next steps. So in the art community, it would be the phone call goes. And then it's selection criteria. So what is it that you're using the art for? Right. Swipe left or swipe right. Great. Now that can lead into a more lengthy conversation, because now they've qualified themselves to you. And this is the whole process of selling. The customer is qualifying themselves to you, not the other way around. A lot of people have an ass about face.
That's massive difference, isn't it? For even psychology to go, I'm not selling you. Okay.
It's not a matter of that. It's just a matter of, I've put my time, effort, sweat, tears into this piece of artwork, and I'm going to select a family for it. It's like you're selecting a family for a rescue dog or a child, or that example, no one gives away their children. But it's about
their art, though. Some people,
but you're selecting people, right? And then at every step of the process, you're continuing to select, and you're getting more and more refined. And so by the time you're at the end of the process, you're not asking for the order, because they're asking you, well, where do we sign up?
Right.
Because you've got your story just right. And a company came to me, they sell equipment, so completely different company. They came to me recently. They said, Martin, we're not getting much traction. What's your process? Well, we're getting the clients calling them, and we're sending them an email, and then nothing's happening. Okay, lead close. So we worked on their process, and now that's an 8-step process,
Ooh,
which is closing deals.
right.
But it's not a big long, like in that particular case, it was a 10-minute process.
Nice.
And it's just, boom, right, this is what you do at minute 2, minute 3, minute 4, just a structured story. This is what you want to do: pricing, pitching, expertise, status, right, close, boom. Because for most people, when they come to the close, that's why I say to people, don't close. Literally don't close, because by the time you get there, they'll close anyway. Because what I see a lot, I facilitate with a lot of businesses, and I get to actually have a look at their Zoom calls and the salespeople selling, which is fascinating, infuriating, and fun at the same time.
Don't say that. What are you doing?
It's like movies. You can sit there and throw popcorn at the screen, right? But about 5 months ago, I took on this organization, and they had an hour's pitch, and they would go through their pitch. And as they neared the hour mark, as they got to the 50-minute mark, you could see the anxiety starting to rise in them, because they knew they were approaching the close, right? Yeah. And they were going, and you could sense it. And then you could sense the anxiety rising in the client, because they knew what was coming as well. God. Because when a customer knows what's coming, the croc brain, the fight or flight center of the brain, is going to either fight you or flight. They're either going to run away or fight you on price or with objections. So don't even get the croc brain engaged. And if you've established yourself as an expert all the way through the process, there'll be no need to close, because the customer is going to be saying to you, we're in.
We're in. Yeah.
Now, like that, an hour long, you just think, oh my God, you'd be sort of too much.
Like, when you get those robocalls and they call you and they won't shut up, and you're just like, just.
So what would you think would be like, 5-10 minutes, conversation to sort of,
Yeah. So for that particular organization, it's structured, it's booked, and everyone knows what they're in for before the call, right? But for a piece of art, like, it really depends, because if Kat is selling, for example, a $50,000 piece of original space art, the process will remain the same, but it will be, so basically a sales process has 4 main steps: origination, which is marketing, origination, what I call a 5-minute swipe, which is where you're selecting the customer, they're not selecting you. Then you're into the pitch, then you're into a decision-making process, and then the close happens. If Kat is selling, for example, to SpaceX, it might be a phone conversation, a very excited Kat going to the next, then Kat would go to the next pitch, but then likely Kat's going to have to pitch to somebody else and somebody else. There's going to be 3 or 4 pitches in that process. Yeah. Whereas for a $1,000 piece of art, it should be a one shot, one kill, right? It should be, right, this is the process. Yeah. And the only thing that I would be thinking with art is that, and this is a question without notice for you guys, but when someone buys a valuable piece of artwork, is it a joint discussion between partners, or does someone just come and buy it?
I've had both, honestly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I found it, there's been a dominant one, and then the one that's had to be talked over, or, I really, really like this, and they've sort of gone along with the decision.
Yeah, I've had a bit of both, but I do something a little different occasionally when I'm selling, because if I get more than one person interested in an item, I'll actually interview each person like in relatively short succession, and they'll know that I'm talking to multiple people because I'm trying to place it in the correct place. So I'll have all of that conversation, but it is very different. It's like very much like, I'm just trying to learn about you and what makes you, and what their passion is, and like just checking that it's going to the right place. Because also not interested in selling someone for their very last dollar. I want to make sure that they have the means, because just to be ethical about it. Like, I don't want it to go to, like, I've had people that I've turned away because I knew that they couldn't manage it, and that was, they were very sad, but it was ultimately the right decision. So totally. I structured mine a bit like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And see, because if you think about it, that if let's say you're selling a $5,000 piece of art, like that's a major investment for any family, right? So it's logical to think that you've probably got either the husband or the wife that's scouting for, they're the more committed.
Yes.
And then you've got the person that's being pulled by the nose to go, hey, look, we need a piece of art, right? That's the objection part.
Yeah.
And so when you're on a call with a high priced, I would always suggest that you get on with both people, because otherwise what's going to happen is you've got the interested party, and the interested party is going to be the buyer anyway. But if the other partner's not on the call, then what you're relying on is that person to then relay the story you've told them to their partner to get them over the line. And that's where deals go to die, right? Whereas if you can get both people on the call, and as you said, Chris, you know who's driving the bus, but then it's a matter of saying, so let's just play partners for a second, Kat. So let's just say, Chris, you were talking to Kat and I, and Kat was driving the bus, and interested, and I was in the background. You'd be saying, so Martin, because artwork is for everybody, I'm just interested to find out what you're feeling about this piece of art, and how you feel about it, because then my objections are going to come out, and then you, as the artist, are going to be able to overcome them rather than rely on Kat to convince me later on.
Yeah, that, because you've already probably sold to the wife, say, but the husband, you've got to go, well, bring him into the conversation to sort of get him on board with the same thing.
Absolutely. And it's something that I learned very early on in my career, because I used to do a lot of selling to the farming community and to tree guys. You go around to their places, and I knew full well that the boss was the wife, right?
Yeah.
But so many salespeople, for whatever reason, won't talk to the female. And females, rightly and justifiably so, get really freaking pissed off, because I would too. It's like they're invisible, right? So I knew if I was there, the guy wanted it. So the guy would want like a $70,000 cherry picker. And so I knew before I got there, it would have been, really? You think you're getting a $70,000 cherry picker? And so I'd get there and I wouldn't talk to the husband. I would just be talking to the wife. I'd have the husband going up and down. And by the time the husband was down, the wife would be going, hey, Rob, we're getting one. It's a great idea.
One of the things I do like to do before I'm selling, or in the steps leading up to like some sort of like phone conversation, if it's something that's booked in, is I do send like a nice like brochure which has all of like, it's got like a lot of the key information about the value, about how these have appreciated over time, like a little bit of the backstory of me and prizing me as an artist, as well as my process, so that it's kind of like, it's like the highlight notes, so that when they're going into it, they've already, it's a lot of the stuff is kind of like in their heads already. We'll talk about it more in the meeting. But I found that is really helpful.
So there's a fine line there. And what you just described to me sounds like it would be successful, right? So just think about telling a story, and think about if you're buying a novel, you don't read the last chapter first, right? You don't skip all the way forward. What a lot of people will do, and I bet you artists are no different, is that when they get an inquiry, they'll send a catalog out with everything that they sell in it, or there'll be something that they send out. Now, when you do that, you're revealing the last chapter first. And then why would someone jump back on a phone call with you? So, but if you're doing it as you described it, Catherine, which is to, you can tell I'm getting serious when I call you Catherine.
In trouble.
But in your case, you're using it to actually build your status. So there's actually an excitement, and there's a FOMO. Oh shit, if I don't get on the phone with Kat, I'm going to be missing out. That 100%. Is a good setup.
Yeah, because actually it's that I put forward. I don't put forward the story of the artwork. I don't put forward all of the intricacies of how it was necessarily made, because that is the stuff for the content for the call. That's the sort of engaging story. But a lot of that prizing, a lot of those positioning things, like, I'll be like, hey, this is the video of me on the Discovery Channel. Click this link if you want to, and I'll send them little bits and bobs like that. It won't be everything, but it'll be a few things that when they come to the call, they're like, okay, you know, for instance,
this is you branding yourself though. So this is
100%,
your
yeah,
marketing thing. Before they even get to you, they're going, wow, this girl's, you know, you've set the tone of, you know, who you
yeah,
are. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when you spoke before about, you know, like people, they don't talk to the wife with the cherry picker thing. It's because they know that's going to be difficult. They know that is, you know, that's where you've got to go, because that's the roadblock. But it's like we can tend to shy away from and just speak to the one who's going to agree with us. So this is what another thing that people have to get over. The ones that agree with you, you don't have the issues with. It's the ones that you've got to bring to the table and change their mindset about what's going on, or find out what's going on with them.
yeah.
And as I said, then you're relying on somebody else to pitch your business to their partner.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to pitch my business to the one with the objections, right? Because at least then if it doesn't go ahead, then no harm, no problem.
And in some ways, when you have them both there and you're asking for the other objection, the person that really wants it selling it for you instead of you having to do it.
Just think of it. You're doing the heavy lifting.
Right.
Because otherwise you're relying on the partner to do all the heavy lifting, to find the value in your deal for them and to explain that to their partner. And I don't know if you're just newly married, Kat, you wouldn't understand this, but as your marriage progresses, you guys won't listen to each other, maybe quite like you are right now.
Outrageous. Never.
I know, right? But that's going to happen, right? So people would tend to, in a lot of cases, now I'm being very careful with my language, being very careful because they'll see an external source maybe more as an authority on the subject than their partner.
Well, it is true, but I think often what will happen is that you need multiple sources of information to make a corroborative story actually line up. If I just get a single point of information, I've got nothing to confirm whether that's true or not. And often I need multiple sources. And so you do need your partner to say it, but you also need someone else to say it, because that's the nature of humans. We're like, well, is that true? I'm going to wait till someone else says it. And then your partner goes, bloody told you so.
Yeah.
So let's go through our top 3 things. All right, Chris, I want to start with you. What are your top 3 things you've learned about sales today?
Oh, I thought we were just doing Martin today. Okay. The process, have a process. I really like that, you know, because you don't have to remake it every time. I think that's probably a lot of things that happen, that you sort of try and remake something every time, when you can have one process that this is what I do when this happens. I love that. I suppose speak to the person who has, if you're selling to somebody and they're all on board, but the partner isn't, then that's the conversation where you actually start directing your conversation to them. So I love that. I think 2 will do me, because you put me on the spot there, Kat. You go next.
Well, maybe you'll come up with one at the end. All right, Martin, what are your top 3? If someone has to walk away with only 3 pieces of information, what are the 3?
You're asking me to choose between my favorite children.
I
if there's
know,
only 3.
isn't it the worst?
Look, if there was 3, so the first thing would be develop an I believe price frame mindset. It all starts with that. And before you go into any sales conversation, just, I am the prize. I am worthy. I am awesome. And I don't need this business. You know, will be number 1. The second thing would be, and very similar to Chris's, but it's all about the process. But just think of your process as a selection criteria, so that you're selecting the customer each step of the way. And the third thing that I would say is that every single person that's listening to this podcast, double your prices today, and that'll fix everything. And you know, if you do that, you will be amazed, because if you have the price frame mindset, if you select clients, and if you tell your story with intrigue, with status, tell the story behind your art, and you've got that price at the end, guarantee you that your art will still sell. But guess what? You're going to have double the amount of money in your skyrocket, and that's a win.
100%, 100%. So as far as my top 3, I think number 1 is that mindset thing. And if you are feeling unfamiliar with saying, I am the prize, you have to just say it over and over and over and over again until it's familiar, until it feels comfortable. But ultimately, at the beginning, you're going to feel a bit out of your league or out of your depth in some ways. And that's okay. Good place to start. The only way you get out of that is just by repetition. So just keep on repeating it and keep on at it, because it sooner or later, you're going to realize, oh, damn, I am the prize. So that's the first thing, definitely. Number 2, it's not about the price. 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 It is not about the price. It'd be okay with the fact that you can put your prices up. There are people that are doing things that are nowhere near as advanced as what you're doing, that are charging 100 or even 1,000 times more. It's not about the price. And just be aware that, and I think the third thing, and we've not said it, but you aren't your client, in the sense of what you can personally afford isn't what your client can personally afford, right? And I think that's important. We think, oh God, I can't afford it. I could never sell it at that price. But honestly, like the people that are buying things from me, I mean, I can't afford my own artwork, and that's okay, because I'm not selling to me. I'm selling to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be my third one. Have you had a third one, Chris, that's popped in?
I'm the prize, I think, is got to be the thing, because I think if we conquer that, if everybody conquers that, then the rest of it just falls into place, doesn't it?
100%. And Martin, any final comments?
No, I just think that, well, yes. Hey, if you get me talking, I'll talk all about sales all day.
It's just that.
Everyone listening, you're awesome. Everyone listening, you're amazing. Everyone listening, you've got a big heart. And because you're in the artistic community, you just want to give and give and give. That's because that's who you are, right? So show up as you. Show up as your authentic self, but put your authentic self in as part of a process and prize yourself, and everything is going to go just absolutely wonderfully well, because you're awesome.
Oh, hey, what a great episode. I'll finish on that. That's fantastic.
So, do you have a challenge with sales, or is it something you're comfortable with? If there's things that have worked or things that you've been interested in, write them in the comments below. We love to read them. As always, all the social media links and links to all the stuff our amazing guest is doing is in the description. The next episode, I don't know what we're talking about the next episode.
Next episode, we've got Maggie MacDonald on. So we've got an amazing artist on that's coming to talk to us about hair processes, her Instagram, sharing all her secrets, all the things that she does, and she will be with us next week.
Amazing. And from me, Mr. Martin Eade and Chris Mercer, thank you so much.